Welcome back, shooters. Today we're going to be discussing a very important topic, trigger control. And trigger control comes with group shooting and sight picture. So a big subject. Stay tuned. So as I said, this is a really big subject, and it's something that's so overlooked by many shooters. In the past, we used to shoot standard exercises, which was part of a course of fire at a major match. And in those standard exercises, we had to do group shooting, we had to do trigger control, and we don't practice those enough today. To be totally honest with you, it's a fundamental skill that we need to have to do the sport we do. And I never ever go to the range to do a practice session without shooting a group. Now there's various ways of group shooting, and I'm going to show you my way, and there's various ways of doing it. But if you group shoot before you do your actual training, you can confirm a few things. You can confirm, one, that your gun is working, your ammo is working if you reload, and two, more importantly, that your gun is zeroed. There's no point in spending 350 rounds on a practice session and you find out at the end that your gun was shooting left a few inches, and that's why you were missing the little steel plates. So it's a good fundamental skill, because to shoot a good group, you need to have a good sight picture. But as Rob Latham says, if you can't press the trigger correctly whilst holding that sight picture, there's absolutely no point in aiming, because if you're disturbing those sights whilst pressing the trigger, there's no point. So let's get right into it. What we're going to do is, and this is what I do when I go to the range to start a practice session, and on many occasions I've gone with 200-300 rounds to do a number of things. I start with group shooting and I wind up not doing any of the other skills I've gone to practice. I've shot all that ammo shooting groups. And everything we do here today can be done freestyle, strong hand, and weak hand. It's important that you practice your group shooting skills, your trigger control, your sight picture, both freestyle, strong hand, and weak hand, because in a match you're going to be tested. So my strategy when I go to the range is I set up one single target at 10 meters and I fire 5 rounds. I want to make sure that my impacts are exactly where I'm aiming. If not, I will make adjustments there and then, right at the beginning of my training session. After that, I want to make sure I can shoot accurately at various distances. And that's where I do a walk up or a walk down group shooting exercise. And you will see exactly what that is when I demonstrate it. Now, if we're close to the target, we talk about different focuses. Now, whether you're using a target focus, if you're a red dot shooter, or a front sight focus, if you're an iron sight shooter like me, there comes a time where you actually use both, or a third, which is somewhere in between, when you're looking through the sights at the target, but not actually focused on the target or focused on the front sight. And that's a discussion for another time. But generally, with an iron sight shooter, depending on your skill level, and this distance will change depending on how good you are and how much you practice, when I'm close to a target, I can use a target focus. Now, a target focus means that my sights are fuzzy, but the target is crisp. And depending on your skill level, you can push that distance to 7, 8, 10, 12 meters and still use a target focus, because you've practiced it and you know where your hits are going to be. But once you incorporate penalty targets or smaller targets or bigger distances or small plates, I use a front sight focus, because that is the most accurate way to shoot. There are a few people out there who will disagree with that and they swear by a target focus. Maybe these people are shooting 100,000 rounds a year or more using that type of focus, and they're good enough at it because of their skill level to get away with a target focus. Why are they doing it? Well, a target focus is quicker. A target focus lets you shoot quicker, but it's not as accurate given a growing distance. A front sight focus is more accurate, but it's a little bit slower. So in your walkthrough, another job you have to do is identify what targets you're going to use what focus on. Is it a difficult target with a penalty on it? I'm using a 100% front sight focus. In other words, it takes longer because I have to first identify the target, see where it is, make sure my sights are aligned on it, come back to my front sight, confirm all's okay, and then have a good trigger press without disturbing the sights. And what you'll find out when you do these exercises is as you get further back in distance, trigger control becomes infinitely more critical to get right. So for me, nowadays, I'm practicing a lot more trigger control, trying to get the groups smaller at distance than I am focusing on whether I'm seeing the sights correctly. Most of us see the sights correctly if we understand what a 6 o'clock hold is, or whatever it is, type of style we use on the target. But not a lot of us understand how important it is to feather that trigger. And I will do a quick demonstration now to show you what I mean. So we're preparing for a shot. We're using a front sight focus. In other words, the target's fuzzy, but we want a clear front sight focus. In other words, it's a difficult shot. We have our trigger press. Now, my trigger has that amount of pre-travel in single action, i.e. there's a wall there. That's where it stops. Any extra pressure after that point, my hammer's going to drop and I'm going to fire the shot. So when I'm firing a shot that needs to be extremely accurate, I need to focus more attention on my trigger press than on my sights. So once I've got to that wall, I want to feel that wall for that shot. I'm going to build the pressure very, very gently until that gun fires. And I'm not saying to the gun, oh, I've got an excellent sight picture, I want the gun to go off now. That will disturb the sights almost 100% of the time. You have to be able to build that pressure whilst maintaining your sight picture, and build that pressure in a consistent, smooth manner so that that hammer falls with the least disturbance to the sights. And that shot, when you're practicing in live fire on the range, should be a surprise, i.e. you build, oh, shit, the gun went off. That's a brilliant shot. Not, I have a great sight picture, I need that shot to go off now. If you're a right-handed shooter, that shot's going to go low left. You're going to shoot the penalty. And that's why we have so many penalty hits. People are manipulating the trigger incorrectly. So you want a clean, smooth build of pressure to the rear of the gun without disturbing the sights. Now you might say, that takes really, really long. Yes, it does. But let's remember that it's dependent on the distance and the difficulty or degree of difficulty of the target you're engaging. I'm not going to do that on an open target at 7 meters. I'm going to slap through that trigger. Even if I disturb the sights, I'm still going to shoot an alpha. So as you practice this and get better at it, your job then will be to learn how to do that whole process quicker so you can shoot faster. Now, there's a lot of information here that you need to practice individually. That's why we train each individual technique. But understanding that building the pressure on that trigger for a very fine, accurate shot is very, very important at the longer, more difficult distances. And slapping through like I do on the closer shots is better for the close shots that I know I can get away with. Sight focus, target focus also depends on the difficulty of the shot, but also depends heavily on your level of competence on your trigger and on your sights. So I will now show you how I shoot my 5-shot warm-up group, and then I will show you how I shoot my walk down or walk up group to practice my group shooting and trigger control. See you shortly. I'm really happy with that group. What we're looking for is that your fist covers your whole group. I had one a little bit higher, I had 2 through the same hole, and the other 2 are there. There's 5 shots. It's central, so I know my gun is zeroed. I know my ammo's working, and everything's great. My fist covers the group. That's more than enough accuracy for practical pistol shooting. So I've confirmed everything's great. I can start with my practice. There's one more thing I need to do now. I need to do this at different distances, and I need to do it strong hand and weekend, so that I know there are no errors in my trigger press, because with strong hand and weekend, those trigger press issues are highlighted even further, and you will know straight away that you have a trigger press issue and you need to work on that by looking at what the target's telling you. So now I'm going to show you my walk down group shooting, and then I will show you my walk up group shooting, which allows you to do your group shooting at different distances. See you shortly. So that's how I do my walk down group shooting. I would continue back to 25 meters, 30 meters. In Greece, we don't have a lot of distance, but that's to give you a general idea of how I do it. I got back to about 17, 20 meters here. I would run a full mag, and I might do a reload and continue if I've got the space to practice the further distances where your skill level needs to be a lot higher on the trigger to maintain that group size. Let's go have a look at this group. I started at 2 meters away where I can actually see the alpha, and that was my sighting point for the first 2 shots. And look at that. All the way back to 17, 18 meters, I basically shot a really, really nice group that my fist easily covers. This tells me a number of things. Gun's working, ammo's working, sights are zeroed, and my trigger control is there. And as I went further back, I needed to put more attention to my trigger than my sights. Yes, I still confirmed my sights were in the right place, but the focus as I got further back became trigger control, so that I wouldn't pull those sights off target and have a shot land where I don't want it to shot. This is the focus you need to have for your difficult shots. You need to recognize where on the stage you need to apply each one of those techniques. Now, why do we also do this group shooting from the back forwards? Well, starting in the front's a little bit easier. The target's close. I can precisely place 2 rounds, which gives me a point to aim at, which makes it a bit easier. And the skill increases, the level of skill needs to increase as you go further back. But next time I come to the range, I'm going to do my 5 shots at 10 meters, make sure everything is good. Then I'm going to start at 25 or 30 meters with my first 2 shots and walk forward 3 steps for every 2 shots until I get to the front target. And with that necessity to have that high skill level of trigger control at the beginning, which you will find on some stages. I mean, we started a stage at a level 3 a few weekends ago where the first 2 shots of the match were at 30 meters. You needed to have the skill set to pull those 2 shots off good, otherwise you'd have a miss or you'd have multiple backups. So you need to train this both from the front going backwards and from the back coming forwards. And I suggest you alternate each time you go to the range, keep a record of what you're doing, and then also do it both strong hand and weak hand. I hope you enjoyed that. Speak to you soon.